Imagine a high-precision CNC machine methodically working in the harsh Andes millennia before the official invention of the wheel. Sounds like the absolute ravings of a fevered imagination? Then why are traces of tubular drills found on the monolithic blocks of Puma Punku? Modern engineering could only confidently replicate these microscopic machining marks at the very end of the 20th century. We stand before ruins that mainstream science calls the temple complex of a primitive culture. But engineers see something entirely different here.
Before us are not altars for blood sacrifices, but the mangled remains of an industrial hub of unknown purpose. Look at the famous H-shaped blocks. Their geometry brazenly defies the entire academic chronology of humanity, shattering the cozy myths of armchair historians. These parts are made of gray andesite and diorite. On the Mohs scale, their hardness reaches 7. These are igneous rocks that are practically impossible to machine with copper or bronze. Any modern machinist will tell you that a diamond tool is needed here. But we find not a single trace of primitive chisel strikes here. The surfaces are polished to a glass mirror finish. The internal right angles are cut with frightening mathematical precision. How can you create a perfect internal corner in stone without a milling tool? With hand tools, you'll inevitably leave rounded corners or micro cracks from impacts. But here, the inner corner's radius of curvature is 0. This is technological nonsense for the ancient world. Such a clean cut can only be achieved with high-speed rotation or a laser. Every part of the complex is standardized. The H-shaped blocks look as if they rolled off a single assembly line of an ancient factory. They have absolutely identical proportions and a complex system of grooves. This is not the manual, one-off work of a craftsman. This is serial machine production of the highest caliber. The grooves were designed for metal clamps that rigidly secured the structure. We can see traces of molten metal poured directly into the stone molds. What Stone Age civilization possessed portable metallurgical furnaces capable of reaching the melting point of complex alloys at this altitude? Almost 4,000 meters above sea level, the air is thin. There is barely enough oxygen to breathe, let alone maintain extreme temperatures in the furnaces. Yet, production ran with flawless efficiency until something terrible happened. Arthur Poznański, a prominent engineer and researcher, spent half a century studying these ruins. He conducted a highly complex archaeoastronomical analysis of the orientation of the complex's main structures. His findings came as a true shock to the scientific community, which rushed to immediately classify and ridicule them. Poznański proved that the angles of the structures perfectly align with astronomical events that occurred exactly 15,000 years ago. Accounting for the precession of the Earth's axis, he calculated the exact date this foundation was laid. This was the Deep Ice Age, the era of mammoths. Academia deliberately marginalized his work, branding it anti-scientific heresy. Admitting Poznański was right would mean rewriting all history textbooks and trashing hundreds of PhD theses. That is why it is easier to call these perfect cuts the result of prolonged friction with ordinary sand. But sand does not leave extremely fine parallel grooves spaced evenly at fractions of a millimeter. These grooves are the kinematic trace of a cutting tool's feed. We see the step of a milling cutter that cut into solid rock with incredible speed and power. Some holes in the blocks have a complex stepped shape. Drilling such a hole in diorite today is only possible using ultrasonic machines or diamond core bits under constant cooling. Who supplied coolant to these drills 15 millennia ago? Even more terrifying is the scene of Puma Punku's destruction. This was not the result of a slow decline or gradual abandonment by its people. The complex was destroyed instantly, in a fraction of a second. as if caught in the epicenter of a directed blast of colossal destructive force. Monolithic slabs weighing hundreds of tons are torn to pieces and scattered across the plateau like children's blocks. The scatter vectors of the fragments point to a single source of a monstrous kinetic impact. No earthquake could ever launch a megalithic platform into the air. Beneath the soil, researchers find blocks mixed with fossilized silt, shells, and the bones of extinct animals. These are undeniable traces of a massive water cataclysm. A giant tsunami swept over the Andes, carrying ocean fauna to an unimaginable height. Water, mixed with mud and stone, struck this high-tech node, halting its operation forever. The factory of the gods was buried under meters of sedimentary rock. The surviving remnants of humanity regressed, forgetting the true purpose of these colossal machines. Millennia later, the Aymara Indians came here. They saw perfect stones sticking out of the ground and named this place the Gate of the Puma. They did not build this complex. They only tried to use its ruins for their primitive rituals. Historians attribute the creation of Puma Punku to the Tiwanaku culture, ignoring the fact that the natives didn't even have a written language. How can you design highly complex modular architecture without blueprints, without mathematical tools, and without understanding the strength of materials? It's an engineering absurdity. Try giving a modern architect the task of assembling a similar andesite puzzle without using computer-aided design. They would fail. Yet we are asked to believe this was done by people in loincloths using copper chisels and stones. Every detail here screams machine technology. We see flat-bottomed blind holes that are impossible to chisel by hand. We see ultra-thin cuts, just a millimeter wide, reaching tens of centimeters deep into the rock. These are the marks of circular saws. The sawed quartz on Washington Avenue is a war-broken iron roof of hard stone. Who operated these saws? Whose hands set the feed rate of the diamond drill? Puma Punku remains a silent witness to a precursor civilization whose technological development may have surpassed our own. They built for the ages, but failed to foresee a global planetary shift. Today, these ruins serve as an inconvenient artifact that orthodox scientists carefully avoid. After all, if we acknowledge the machine processing of diorite in ancient times, we must also admit that our civilization is far from the pinnacle of evolution on this planet. We are but heirs, wandering in the shadow of the great creators of the past. A forgotten factory in the Andes still guards its secrets, waiting for those who dare to face the truth. The truth lies hidden in the geometry of stone. One only needs to know how to read it. The true history of humanity is far darker and more complex than school textbooks. Subscribe so you don't miss new investigations. This has been Shadow of Civilization. See you in the ruins of the impossible past.